All right, so everything seems to be rolling here. Cameras on, uh, drinks in hand, refreshments, and everyone is in their cards. So here we go. Bad publicity. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm not sure how many people are out there watching in um, viewerland. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if anyone can watch. I just got an error on the. All right, oh, there we go. It's official. I can see the previews. I can see the lives. We're rolling here. Technical difficulties out the window. So, welcome, guys. Bad Publicity kicking off season 3, episode 1. Today, let's dive right in. What do you guys think of the first 3 packs of the Lunar Cycle?
Sure, I'll kick it off. I think that especially the first 2 packs were heavily favoring the Corp. I think it's ridiculous how unbalanced the first 2 packs were. However, I think the runner maybe got a couple tools to finally start catching up to the Corp in the 3rd pack, but definitely has opened up the game, created, with the Currents, the new Grail Ice coming out, Noise sort of making a comeback. There's a lot of new themes that have come with the new pack, and that's always cool to see the game changing and growing.
Yeah. I want to kind of mimic what you said there, and but basically, I think that it was kind of a good thing that the Corp got favored more than the runner did, because as of late, especially at we're seeing the results that we've seen, especially in like our locals, the nationals, that sort of thing. It's been runners have had kind of an easier time as of late, at least around our area. So it was kind of nice to see the Corp kind of making a swing back as they were earlier on in the game, where your Corp deck was usually your really strong one, and your runner was just had to be good enough to win half the time. Now the runner's been winning quite a bit, depending on which build you're taking, and the Corp was your maybe. So I guess it was kind of good that they got some new tools.
What's about the you guys experimented with the new IDs?
Near Earth Hub, I've played extensively, as well as many other people have, because it's so strong. That was kind of a game changer in the first pack, and probably the best card so far to come out for the Corp, honestly. Nasir, I've messed around with a little bit. Not convinced he's better than Kate, but I've seen people do some pretty neat things, especially like Order of Saul and stuff like that. Quetzal I've seen run a few times. I haven't played it yet. It can kind of put a unique pressure, but is also limited. And the Foundry I think the Foundry has some strengths. It's got a decent like early game where you can get some stuff set up, but it also thins the R&D, so it kind of puts a big bullseye on R&D when every turn they're pulling new ice out of their R&D. But I don't know if you guys saw the new ruling from ABTs with the Foundry.
Yeah, yes, that was a little crazy. You'll have to recoup that for Corpse, but you might have to move down and over a little. Oh yeah, right there.
Okay.
Right there.
That's the golden spot, right?
All right, cool, thanks. So I think if I remember this right, it's the same as like how accelerated diagnostics works. If you play 2 of them in a row or something, maybe you can help me out, Jameson. Is it like you flip it over, and if it's an ice, you set it down and res it like you normally would, but because you would play that and res it, and if it's the first ice you res that turn, then the other 2 cards you drew actually get shuffled back in, and you draw 2 more on top of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. It stops the accelerated beta test with as soon as you hit a piece of ice.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then you shuffle those other 2 in, but you can still play them all if they are ice, right?
That I'm not 100% sure of. I don't think that was really like, what is the? Let me just check the card here. It says
because I think it's just draw 3 and play what's ice.
But the Foundry's not giving you a choice. It says the first time you res a piece of, or it says, yeah, you may search. So maybe you have the option
Yeah, I,
to trigger the Foundry's ability or not. That's probably has to be officially clarified.
Hmm.
But
I thought it's kind of, it gives it just a little bit of extra perk to want to run them, which is cool because they're fun to run. But that's my experience on the IDs. More definitely played a ton of NEH. The rest has just kind of been like seen it here and there.
I really I really still like Next Design over the Foundry though. I'm still waiting for the rest of like the next ice to be flushed out and all the Grail kind of pieces of ice to really make that sing and the matchups and accelerate the startup boost that Next has there. The Foundry, I like it, and I think I like it more because it can nullify um, those Maker's Eye, or someone plays a Maker's Eye run, and or after an indexing or something, just that ability to like keep one piece of ice unresed, you res it, and then shuffle your R&D so you know they don't have you locked. I really like it more as a defensive play than a play to pull ice out and thin your deck and do all that stuff to get cards quicker.
I never even thought about doing it that way because I'm still using, most people are still using the Jacksons, but that's actually a really cool idea. On the topic of between the same thing, I think that if you're going to be getting a ton of ice, then early game that's great. And so I think using why is the name like escape me? The one you prefer.
The Next Design?
Next to the yeah. So using that one, that's good because it gets you that really good start, and then chances are you probably have enough credits to run it. Whereas if you're constantly pulling ice, then you may run into a shortage, a resource shortage with your money. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I'm not in love with either of them. So I don't know. I guess I have to see which one I win against more. On the topic of between.
So what do you guys think about let's talk about Chronos Project. I think that was a card that deserves some discussion. Now, this is that agenda that, when scored, forces the runner to discard all the cards in their heap. Um, as much as this is powerful, you look at the biggest build right now is an NBN, and is a Chronos Protocol or a Chronos Project worth swapping out for the breaking news?
No, I don't think. I don't think it's necessarily right to just automatically marry the two cards, NBN with Chronos Project. I don't know that it's a fit for that deck. I guess you could play it and maybe limit some Parasite recursion, but I think you're going to see that deck more in the taxing builds. Like, I think it fits really well maybe in an RP tax build where their biggest weakness is going to be like getting parasited against their Sarugis and Komainus and stuff. So if you can get a parasite or two in the trash and then score a Chronos Project behind a Nisei, Caprice Nisei and Ash, which is pretty easy to find scoring windows in that build, then you've really crippled, especially like Shapers that do recursion or Noise that does recursion. Or like in a PE deck, you might see it where they put breakers out of your hand with net damage, and then just whatever's been net damage, they can just take it right out of the game. So I think it's probably going to be better in a Jinteki build. That's just my experience, or I guess what I've seen so far. But seems like a decent card, but probably is not going to fit all decks.
Yeah, I agree that, but I think it's one of those cards that deserves play testing. I really encourage a lot of people to try this card out because, I mean, Corpse, tell us how much of a crutch, or not crutch, but how much you rely on Same Old Thing, right? You have Same Old Things in your deck to really recur a lot of those beefy events. Now, if I was to kill those beefy events, that's going to throw a big monkey wrench into your the way your deck mechanic runs, you know?
Yeah, I mean, well, like a lot of people out there, I mean, it's hard to not spam account siphons and same old things and indexings and be able to make deep dives and really cripple the runner, um, or sorry, the corp when you need to. This, I'm not terribly worried about this though. Even though that my deck does rely on recurring things from my grave, just main reason is because this would be super bad if it was getting towards the end of the game and I've run out of events, right? I've run out of events that are in my R&D, or my stack, sorry. This would need to be sprung late game, which again by that time hopefully things are set up and it's not too terrible for the runner. But it's so hard. If you pull it off early game, it's kind of like I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference because you're still going to see those initial copies of the cards you've already put into your deck anyway, right? So, I mean, it hurts same old thing, but it might not hurt your deck. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Like you're saying, is it worth the risk to put it in there, right?
Yeah.
Because
And then,
it's such a timing, it's a time constraint agenda to pop, right? Like obviously you don't want this opening hand or even like early game because their heap hasn't filled up, and
yeah.
then you know then you're kind of in a now I'm potentially drawing other agendas into my hand while I'm holding one waiting to wipe out their
Yeah.
their cards. So
And then again, finding the balance between is it worth it for me to change my current agenda suite to add this just to stop decks that are recurring things from the archives, or is it worth it just for me to keep my current setup and then my deck functions as normal, right? It's I don't know, it's a tough call. I think we'll need to see some builds that are meant to exploit this, or I mean, if anarchs get way out of control, then we'll probably see it. But until that point.
Greg, you seen anybody throwing it together on the net these days?
Yeah. I saw it pretty well used in a personal evolution deck. I think that's, like I said, I think that's the most natural place to put it because you're going to be, even early game, generally, you're going to be doing some damage. And if it's criminal and you hit a Corroder or a Gordian Blade or a Yogg, like that could cripple them the entire game. So even if if you get that one card and you remove it from the game, well, there goes their clone chip or whatever they have to back that up. So I think it works there. Like I said, I think it's limited. It seems strong, and if it is scored like in the mid to late game, it can really seal a game. But I think in a lot of decks, like you guys both mentioned, it's going to be so timing sensitive that I'd rather it just be a breaking news where I can get the instant point or do some tag punishment, and not even risk that variance.
Definitely, I do love the design of this card. It never really boiled down to me before thinking about, man, not only do now I have to really put heavy thought into what cards I want in my deck, aside from agendas, now I'm like really hard pressed to put an agenda suite together these days. Other than if you're playing, obviously, the NBN suite of fast advance agendas there, but
Yeah, that's great. Like I'm so glad that like HB Glacier now has Eden Fragment. Like they have other choices, or it's not just like Project Wotan. Like it's the more agendas we have to score, it's just going to open up more avenues for the game, which I think is great.
do you think that what are you guys' opinion on maybe this card isn't seeing play because nobody's really going for the kill style as much as you know back when the first cycle was out, when it was like Scorch was like everywhere.
From the new cycle, or
no, like I'm talking about from the Genesis cycle, like back, like we saw Scorch heavy all the time, and it was more a more kill heavy meta back then. Now it's just there are kill decks. I'm not saying there's not, but I just find that there's more people advancing for the win these days than there used to be when the game started.
So yeah, totally agree with that. And I think the biggest reflection of that is you're going to see it in the runner deck in terms of meat damage protection. It's far more common to see decks without Plascrete nowadays. I think primarily because like super modernism has kind of faded out a little bit. Although I think the NBN kill deck, especially with Near Earth Hub, is extremely powerful. But in general, most people are not playing Scorch decks anymore. So I think runners have just kind of resigned to, if it's a kill deck, I'll just beat them with money. And I think that's primarily working. But I also think that if there is a really strong kill deck to be built, now is the time to really exploit this sort of soft spot of the runners.
I totally agree. Corpse, what do you think? Do you think going? Let's talk about in respects to Worlds here. Everyone's going to be running this road to Worlds right now. Is it like nobody wants to get knocked out of the tournament because they didn't put a Plascrete in or didn't protect themselves, but then you feel so bad. You're like, oh, put down this Plascrete, pay the money for it, and it never gets used, right? Like,
Yeah. So
yeah, what's your thoughts on putting tag or meat protection or some kind of protection like that into your deck for Worlds here?
okay, so I still do run with 3 Plascrete Carapaces, not even 2, but 3. And the reason I do that is because I'm playing Andy, it's in blue, and I've got Mr. Lee. So I can cycle them if I don't necessarily need them off the draw.
Are you thinking about Crash Space?
No. I used to use Crash Space. But yeah, I leave them out of the way if I don't need them. And if I think that there's a whiff of I might need this, then I put the thing down. I just set the money aside, just pretend I don't even have it, and then just put the thing in and bite the bullet. Because, man, I absolutely despise getting killed to death like within the first few turns of the game. Grendel put the fear of God into me, so I can't do it. I need to have them in there.
Greg, what's your thoughts? You got to put it. Is it an auto include?
I don't know. I mean, it hasn't been for me at all. And by the way, I did have a Crash Space in my latest Andy variation.
Nice.
Just for those little Scorch decks out there, but that's limited too. But see, I don't know. Like you said, I have a hard time just like playing Carapace for the. I mean, realistically, what, maybe 15% chance I run into a kill deck.
Yeah, like you're 1 in 5, 1 in 10 max, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So in that sense, it's really hard to stomach it. So it almost makes me want to play like, and I think it might even, especially since you're mentioning Worlds in regards to what I think the meta is going to be, it almost makes me want to play like a Gabe deck, where like going tag me is going to be built into the deck, so I don't feel so bad about playing Carapace. Where it's like it becomes an asset almost every game because I need that protection, versus like it's sort of good some games. Does that make sense? And I think Gabe might actually be a decent meta call against Near Earth and possibly RP if you can get them early. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really torn on the Carapace right now. Was on my way home from my local game night tonight. I'm like, Carapace, no Carapace, Carapace, no Carapace. So I don't know.
If I wasn't Lee, man, if I didn't have Lee in the deck, I would be right on board with you, man. Because the only reason I have it in there is because I have a way to just to forget about it if I don't need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I had to keep drawing them in hand, I don't know. I probably wouldn't keep much longer.
No, that's a good way to like sort of absorb some of the redundancy of it.
Yeah.
So let's go back and talk about some of the other cards. Corpse, we can start with you. What are some standout cards that you've seen from the first 3 packs here?
Oh, so we were talking about that just before the camera started rolling, but Shattered Remains. Shattered Remains. I really thought that there'd be just some crazy shenanigans going on with this card. If not just to get rid of consoles, then to get rid of the plascreets if they're out there and that sort of thing. But haven't seen much of it at all.
Yeah, well, what's I think that might be something if the stealth build really picks up, because that seems like a card that can just cripple somebody's stealth rig.
It could cripple almost anybody, like at any time. That's why I'm surprised it hasn't been seen. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, because I mean, the last thing most people don't want to lose their consoles. Consoles are in there for a very good reason typically, and I mean, any other hardware choices that you've taken, just you don't want to lose them like that.
Yep, I think that goes to there was a lot of talk about bad times. Remember when that was coming? Play only if the runner's tagged. The runner's memory limit is reduced by 2 until the end of turn. People were going crazy for bad times, and now it's like I've never seen it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I just figured because this thing's an asset, so you get to play the shell game a little bit. Play it like a trap. Whereas the bad times is like they, I don't know. They kind of know they could expect that it's coming. This one, it's kind of like their own fault if they run into it. You know what I mean? I thought I'd see some bluff players have this thing in their deck, but not yet. Not yet.
Well, I think it's kind of the same thing, right? It's like it's another timing card. You hate, just like Aggressive Secretary, you hate to see it in your opening hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the comments. G Dragon 56 said he finds it pretty situational.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think nowadays most people are playing some sort of hardware that's important, whether it's interface or a console, as you mentioned. But yeah, it is super timing sensitive.
Greg, you got next card. What do you think?
I think in terms of what's probably been the most important card to me, I've already said it. I don't need to go off on it, or maybe I do. Near Earth Hub.
Yeah. Okay, what's something that's not an ID?
Okay.
I really thought you would say something about domestic sleepers, but
yeah, I was started off so excited about it, and then I built a HB deck that started off super strong, and then it's faded, and I haven't gotten back to it. So I'll have to unlock that puzzle some other time. But I'm gonna go with Lotus Field.
Yeah,
because I think like there was a lot of hype about quote meta changing cards in the past, like Swordsman and Swordsman's gonna ruin Atman or Catman, and what it didn't, right? Like we still see Catman winning tournaments like nationals. But in my experience, Lotus Field is played because it's a good card in its own right. Just a 4-strength hard ETR is pretty good. I mean, you're paying a little bit for it, but you're shutting out three of the most powerful cards in the game, which is Yogg, Data Sucker, and Parasite. And so the fact that you're seeing it played in the majority of like Near Earth Hub decks and even some HB decks and almost every deck has really actually reduced the amount of Yoggs being played, I think, significantly. And that in a bigger sense of it, I think that's such a great design move on FFG's part, because Yogg was a problem, and now we're starting to see cards like Victor 1, Data Pike, Enigma make a comeback and be useful, a lot more useful than they used to be. So I think. Big thumbs up to the design of Lotus Field, and I think it really, at this point in time of the game, belongs in almost every single deck.
Do you think we'll see other ones like that style that you can't manipulate the strength, like a barrier or a century? No, obviously we could see it way down the road, but I mean, like, do you think we'll see it a lot sooner, like in the rest of this cycle or early next?
I don't know. It's possible. I mean, I think this card was in response to the 3 cards I mentioned on the runner side, Yogg, Data Sucker, Parasite. So I think maybe if they feel like this isn't a good enough response to those three cards, or things tend to keep imbalancing, then maybe we'll see it. But
Corpse.
maybe they want to just run Lotus Field and use it as a feeler and see how it goes.
Yeah. Corpse, what's your thoughts? Do you want a card like that?
To be honest with you, though, from a design standpoint, because they gave this thing just one influence pip, I really don't think they're going to be making anything else that has the same type of ability in the near future, because it would need to be relatively high strength, your 4s and your 5s, so it couldn't naturally be broken by any breaker that you have. And then the only benefit to putting it in some other faction or put it to some other type would basically just to be like, okay, well, if you really want this ability, then you don't have to splash for it NBN if they get it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think from a design standpoint, I think they're probably going to cool it on this kind of stuff.
One of the cards that I liked, it was mentioned in the show comments here. I'm not sure I like the card, but I want to talk about the style it is. It's the Wayland Morph Ice, Wendigo. I really like the fact that advancing the card changes the subtype. I think that's just such a neat mechanic to have on a piece of ice.
That one we could see more of, for sure. But that's a really that one caught my eye. Actually, I think we were talking about that not too long ago. But the fact that you can just kind of bump it back and forth like that, depending on the flavor of the game, I'm a huge fan of that stuff, man. Flexibility is like the name of the game for me, and yeah, I like it. And if I were to 2 influence pips, I can't afford to put it in anything else. But I mean, if I was going Wayland again, I would take a good hard look at this card when I was building my ice suite.
Yeah, it's almost like a different style of Chimera,
Yeah.
That's just going to stay in play the whole time. It's very interesting. I really wish it had an end run or some kind of stoppage, but
they'd have to crank that price up though big time if they were going to do that.
All right, so next card let's touch on, and we can start off with the Nord. Give me your thoughts on Miss Beckman.
Awesome, love it.
What are you doing a Eureka to get it into play here? Like 8 is
no,
8's pricey.
It's very pricey, but I think it's just such a cool card, from the standpoint that it's opening up the game in different ways, because I mean a full click every turn is not small. I mean that's huge, and no penalty. Like Joshua gives you the tag and just can be trashed right away. So the fact that you have a relatively safe free click to exploit every turn, I mean, you think about it in terms of every 4 turns you take, that's an extra turn, so the sooner you can get into play really is going to open up a ton of things. Now on the same note, really good decks are often too fast for a card like that to be able to get into play. So it's tough to get it into play against like the NBNs or whatever. But in a connection deck with a supplier, you can get a discount to get it into play. And then, I built this really cool, updated my connection deck, and I have it running in there. And I mean, if you can get it into play early enough, you can really take control of a game with this card, I think, especially. But you got to have like decoys and other things to sort of protect yourself, and also realize that certain games it's just not going to really be that useful. But once it hits the table, it's a beast.
But do you think that it's like breaking news kind of how many people are using breaking news? It kind of like kills this card right now.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why like I said, you got to just sort of eat it that it's probably not going to be good against NBN. I mean, maybe you can get 2 decoys on the table. Cool. Then you have a little protection, but I'm probably not playing against NBN because I'm just going to be wasting that time and money to get it out, most likely. But think about it too. Sorry, one quick extra thought. Think about it playing like medium. right? You have enough. Let's say you get enough credits to get in play, and they have an open R&D. Drop a medium, boom. That's pretty nasty. So
So let's shift the conversation over to a lot of cards that came out here were the currents, posing the question to some of the people in the room here. I'll just read out what some people are saying. Um, ELP is amazing in replicating perfection. It's pretty good in HB Glacier. Um, Paywall Imp is not bad in Wayland. Um, Net Celebrity is the best for runners. Lag time would be good in Stronger Together, but that's just a theory. So let's go with Corpse. And what are you feeling on these currents?
So that's I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's going to be a big enough thing to have to worry about, and so put currents in your own deck just to simply counter other people's currents. I mean, that could change big time by the time Worlds rolls around. But as it stands right now, like, very few of them really jump out at me as something I want to put in my deck to make it function better. Most of the time I'm looking at these going, well, maybe I should include this to counter a potential opponent's current kind of thing. But even then, I'm not really worrying about too many of them. I think that for me, the best one, I think the one with probably the most utility is lag time, which I don't know, it's just the way my brain goes. And yeah, there's not too much else I can say about it.
Nord, what are you seeing? What are you seeing with these currents?
I think the currents are legit, especially enhanced login protocol is a beast. Manhunt is pretty strong on the Corp side. The Corp definitely got the longer end of the stick in terms of currents at this time.
Yeah.
The Corp's currents can literally change the entire dynamic of the game, especially as mentioned, like enhanced protocol in an RP deck is pretty brutal, especially if you have a Nisei counter token scored. It's just, I mean, it's pretty bloody, pretty mean. I mean, the way I see it in terms of the runner side is criminals pretty much, their current is so awful that like it's just horrible. I mean, that's just my opinion. Maybe people are getting value out of it. The only way I see it like semi-valuable is in like a maybe an Ian Sterling deck where you need to slow down the Corp just a little bit of time so you can have some extra build time. But for the most part, it's not doing anything. I think that Celebrity probably is the best. I personally, one of the reasons why I'm enticed to play Shaper 4 Worlds is the fact that it has a reasonable current to actually be able to counter Enhanced Protocol or Manhunt or Paywall Implementation if it's a Wayland deck. So I think there's definite value to that. And then if you can build it into your deck, like where it's actually useful, where you're going to be using reoccurring credits like a Personal Workshop or Clone Chip recursion stuff, then I think it's okay. And then I also think I've seen the what's it called? Scrubbed. It's decent. It's okay. It might be worth running. It's nice for like if you want to kill something that has a parasite on it, or you know, need to get through something with a fixed breaker. It can have those kind of benefits. So it's not a totally dead card, and might be worth running to counter some of the currents, but my hope is that between now and Worlds, some of the other packs they've snuck in some pretty good currents for the runner, especially Criminal. They're pretty desperate for one because I think I could fit one in if I found a decent one. I could fit it into an Andy deck.
It's interesting to see because I really think that Scrubbed, I would, being too influenced, I can't fit it anywhere else. I can't fit this current in there just for the sake of a possibility to combat. Like obviously it has a good ability by itself, yes, but I mean, Anarch has other ways to to lower that strength, and um, Net Celebrity, In Faction, and Shaper, I find that one of the most useful ones as well. Um, but the one that I think drew the most attention when it first came out was that targeted marketing. A lot of people were talking about, oh yeah, I'm just gonna put it in play and then call a count siphon, make $10 off you. Um, but
Sure.
I really don't see that one sticking around.
No. And the reason why is because there's too many choices in Netrunner to slow you down with one card. I mean, I think like Account Siphon is a decent call. Parasite can be a good call, but you're not really like generally that card's not directly stopping a runner from scoring an agenda. And so it can be in play for just a very short period of time. But a card like Enhanced Login Protocol can literally shut down a runner. Or as you mentioned, I think lag time, I've seen that run pretty decent in some decks too. It can make it so runners don't even want to run. But yeah, I think that card, the fact that it's a 0 cost, I mean, FFG gets some things wrong from time to time, but the fact that it's 0 cost kind of spells out how strong they thought it was.
I agree with that one. I think that's the most flexible one that you could fit in any deck, other than, you know, if you want a current in your deck that's not your in faction one, I think lag time is the way to go, because the other ones, influence is just becoming so tight sometimes, and you know, manhunt is what, 3? Like,
Yeah, it costs 3, and
before,
I think it's 3 influence too.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I was sorry. I was referring to the influence count on it. Um, 3 influence to move that out of MBN, it's just ridiculous. Um, and then the other one is the enhanced login protocols, and that's 2. You know, like, you're spending 2 influence on something that has potentially a very short lifespan in the game that could maybe not even affect it at all.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's worth noting too. The timing of when you play these things is tricky because, especially I think on the runner side, because you don't want to just drop a current as the runner, especially if you're playing it primarily as a counter. And then you find out the runner is playing currents, and then they counter your current, and now you're down a current to counter theirs. That sucks. So a lot of times you're kind of hanging on to a current, wondering if the runner or if the corp is going to play one. Um, and then the other thing too is like a lot of times it's hard to know if there's not going to be a scoring window for the corp. So you don't want to just play it and then all of a sudden, boom, they biotica Astro Script out of hand, and it's like, okay, well that was fun. You know, total waste of a click and $1 or whatever it costs to get it out. So I think the timing of them can be tricky, and like Enhanced Login Protocol in RP, like you want to play that once you have all 3 of your centrals locked up with ice they don't want to see. You know, like if you have a Kaimanu, Sarugi, and Tollbooth as the front piece of ice in all 3 of your servers, then and that's the right time to play Enhanced Login Protocol.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to hang on to it until you can get max value.
So I will go out on my limb here, bold prediction, and we can get you guys. I'm going to say no. Currents aren't mandatory right now. From the selection that we have and the state of this game, you know, we don't know what's going to come between now and Worlds, but I don't think currents are mandatory in a deck build at this moment. I think they can be played around to an extent in a way.
Well, I promised myself that for me to really even include one, simply because they can go away when the agendas are scored or what have you, that it would be, I would need that current to help my current deck build a pretty good amount, just because if I'm going to be playing the click and paying the money for this thing, for something that's potentially so temporary, that it needs to provide me with a pretty quick benefit, something that I can definitely take advantage of. Because if not, then there's not much point. I'm not going to plan to lose right away. You know what I mean? Plan for just the defense of stopping theirs. You know what I mean? Especially sitting on the corp side of the table. Runner might be a different story, but for corp, yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time popping one of these in there.
So you're saying no as well?
Again, I can't say because I don't know what the world's doing right now en masse. But for me, it's a no. For me, it's a no.
I think there's a very, very high chance my runner deck will have one in my worlds deck. Just simply because I believe that some of the best decks in the tournament, some of the best players in the tournament will be playing them and will be playing them to very good effect. So I just think there's going to be situations in the tournament where I'm going to need it, and it could actually end up tilting which deck I end up bringing. Like if Criminal doesn't get a good current, I might not bring current, or if they don't get a good, or I might not bring Criminal, or if they don't get a good neutral one, it might swing me towards bringing a Shaper deck, just so I honestly have that counter to, especially Enhanced Login Protocol and maybe Manhunt.
So where what do you guys expect to see for Worlds? Do you think we have one more pack and then they hard cap it?
I don't know. When is the next pack due?
That I'm not sure. We should be seeing one early October, I would think, so they give people some time to experiment and play and stuff. But I think they've been pretty good in the past on not releasing something too close, and if they do, then saying that it's not viable.
Yeah. I hope that's the case again. I mean, it sucks to have a pack, you know what I mean, and then 2 days later you completely wonder what you're going to be coming up against because nobody may have found the current meta deck or decks or what they're going to utilize, that sort of thing. So it's good that they stop it, I think.
Yeah, I hope we get the next pack because I've built my Kate deck already with a certain spoiled card in it. So
yeah, we saw if you followed along on Neurunner's other channel, he is using the Astrolab in the cave for some draw.
Cool card.
Which is strange. When I first saw that card, I was very leery on it, but now obviously you can see how that card is going to affect the game because the Corp is installing a lot more remote servers.
Right. So they're either going to change their game plan and install less, which is good because then they're not playing their optimal game plan, or they just let you draw a whole bunch of cards.
Yeah,
it's also awesome.
Win-win.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's an Akamatsu mem chip with a benefit, so why not?
So do you guys think right now are we gonna see something crazy at Worlds? Are we gonna see something fresh take the crown, or are we pretty much prepared that it's either gonna be Kate, Andy, Near Earth Hub?
Yeah, it's gonna be the runner's gonna be Kate, Noise, or Andy, and the Corp's probably gonna be Near Earth or Replicating Perfection. That's my prediction. Would I love to see something else? Yes, but I just don't see anything there that's consistent enough outside of that.
All right, so put that wishy-washy answer aside and tell me, give me the hard prediction right now. 29. Come on, just for fun, go on the record.
Near Earth and Andy.
Corpse, what do you got?
Near Earth, Noise.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're on the hook too, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when Next Design came out, I really thought that was going to be. I said this is going to be the ID that wins Worlds. So I would still love somebody to prove that correct, and that will be the $1 million ticket that I cash in. but I'm going to have to say Near Earth Hub for the corporation, and part of me thinks a tweaked version of Kate will win. I think it's going to be a Shaper and NBN. I think Kate that prepaid style. I think it has a lot going. I think there's a good amount of variations out there, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that play with Net Celebrity, adding that in there to also boost up money on the runs. I think it's good. I don't know, and that's just saying what we have now. First three packs, those are our predictions. That could change if something goes crazy in the next pack, but as of right now, I don't see that happening. I uh, I don't really see many people playing the new um, Anarch as well. I think there'll be a couple people that try it and they might think they have something, but I don't think Quetzal is ready yet for a tournament that big.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be people going to Worlds to like have fun and bring fun decks, but I mean, I think the vast majority of people who are going to be investing that kind of time and money to go are going to be playing decks and IDs they feel extremely competitive with.
Yeah, they're
And
going for throats, basically.
yeah, as you should. It's the World Championship. So,
Yeah.
um, so I agree. I don't think we'll see a lot of these new IDs that are unproven.
Some predictions in the comments. We have Blue Sun um, making an appearance here, and we also have Building a Better World, or BWBI, because we built it. That's it. uh, be, because we built it. So it looks like the comment box here is thinking Wayland.
I think Blue Sun has a chance, but I also think that it would be because they catch him off guard, kind of.
Like that the silhouette that took regionals.
Exactly.
To
I played against somebody online who was proxying Blue Sun, and for like 3 or 4 games, he just like C-Source killed me because I wasn't. I just you don't look at the board that way. Like, oh, what ice did they have res that they could take back 14 credits and get? Oh yeah, curtain wall. Oh yeah, now they can kill me. I shouldn't have ran last turn. So like once you kind of figure that out a little bit, then slow down the game and it's a lot easier to play Blue Sun. But I think especially if people aren't ready for it, it's going to flatline a lot of people who aren't ready for it.
I know Corpse has a strong negative opinion on Blue Sun.
Not negative, just I don't think it's going to be much better or much worse than really anything else because, again, you've got the huge potential to make a lot of money really fast, but as we've seen with the original Whalen Identity, people playing it with the transactions and have sitting on $45 the whole game, like having lots of money doesn't equal a win. And with Blue Sun, you're removing things from the board state, so you're potentially slowing yourself down as well. So I don't know. Well, I'll have to see. We'll have to see once it gets out there and once things get kicked up. But I think that it might be one of those decks, kind of like Personal Evolution, where once you know what's going on with the deck, you just play it a certain way and you don't have to worry about too much. I don't know. We'll see.
The one card you really have to watch out for in that deck is going to be the Root, because you pay 6, you get 3 free credits. You bring it back, you get 6 credits. You install it, pay 6, you get 3 free credits. So you can sit there and recur these 3 free credits the entire game if you don't get the Root trashed off the table. I mean, it's kind of like Nasir, where it's like you play a whole different wonky style to the game. And people who can unlock that, I think, are going to catch some people off guard, but smart runners will be able to catch on to it and be able to sort of beat it like you can beat Whalen now doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think we'll continue to talk about this stuff, but we're gonna if anyone has questions or comments and stuff like that, feel free to throw it up in the comment box. I'm actively checking that out now, so we'll definitely answer any questions that you guys have. Interesting comments when I was watching the Team Covenant guys the other day, and they said that what's going to catch a lot of people off guard is math skills. It was really funny to hear in this type of game, but I mean, you're just calculating like when you got the next ice out, right? Like it's not like it used to be when I'm just gonna run this server and it's gonna cost me $7, and then next turn it's gonna be $7 to run it and $7. There's a lot of influx in this game that is changing, right? how people are running, especially with IQ out now. So the hand size is going to manipulate the strength of that card, and a couple next designs there, or next pieces of ice that can affect the run rate. It's just Blue Sun. How much money is coming and going. It's you really have to look at the whole state of the game. The board. Thoughts on that?
Reading board state has been important since day one, but never has it been this difficult.
Yeah.
Is probably basically the gist of the conversation. Coming from someone who is absolutely atrocious at math without my fingers or a calculator handy, it's been trying, and it's been getting much worse over the course of the game, but has improved my academic skills. So I appreciate that part of it, but yeah, it has become trying. And there have been plenty of games gone by where, what I mean, I thought I had my ducks in a row and I made the run and I realized I'm 2 credits short. You know what I mean? Just because, again, based on what was true 2 turns ago isn't true anymore because of the things that have changed, and a lot of things that change passively. So, you know what I mean? A lot of times if you're not really paying attention, you'll miss something and then you're broke. So, yeah.
So, Greg, we got some people coming in the comments here wanting to know the opinion on Crimson Grid. What do you feel about that card?
That's the Wayland one, right?
Yeah, it's the Wayland. It's an upgrade. That's successful runs against this server are not considered to be successful or unsuccessful for the purpose of card abilities. So people are talking about pairing that with Off the Grid.
Right. I mean, go ahead. Or you should say one.
No, I was just gonna say, you want to touch on that stuff there?
I haven't seen it, other than I've heard talk about it. So the fact that I haven't seen it might say enough. Because I think if it was strong, it would already be prevalent. But at the same time, I mean, I can see the maybe late game. It's sort of just like a one-time caprice kind of, where you can stop them for a turn from getting it. So you might open up a scoring window, because if they're smart, they're going to run with enough money to trash it. So I think it creates like a temporary condition in the game that is very difficult to deal with. But the thing about creating a condition like that is that A, you have to have a combo to do it, and B, it has to be consistent enough of a combo that you can rely upon it to win the game. I don't know if I would bank my game or tournament on a combo like that, because it's not like versatile enough in other ways. I mean, sure, it stops count siphon and maybe security testing and some other things, and it has its use. But I don't know that it's a deck slot that's like where Off the Grid is going to be so strong with it that it's worth it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if it's viable. That's
a lot of people are saying it's very annoying to play against.
Plus you need to see the pairing, right? So yeah, is it worth it based on the chance that I'll see them together or get them together at the appropriate time?
I don't doubt that it's totally annoying to play against, but you just got to stockpile enough money, run it, and trash it, and then the game is open again.
A lot of people here, I think they're surprised to hear that you're not bringing a red coats to Worlds. Maybe I don't think you'll ever live that one deck down. Hopefully you're not a one-trick pony, but there is a question about what do you feel about Eliza's toy box, especially in a red coat style. This is the asset that is a 4 to res, 4 to trash. It is 3 clicks and res a card, ignoring all cost.
I think you can make it work. I think you have to build it right, because it's not. I think you got to look at it as an econ card, and the thing about it is you have to be able to get it behind an ETR piece of ice, where you can protect it, because it's not really going to be good behind Bioroid ice, where they can just click through it and trash it. So you need to get it behind like a Next or something else that has a hard ETR. So you have to protect it for one. And then obviously using a full click or a full turn to do something is not something to sneeze at. But if you can get it early and protect it, and then you have some like a Heimdall 2 and Heimdall 1 and whatever else, Janus out on the table, Wotan, and you can get one or two of them rezzed, you can take total control of the game, obviously, but I don't think it's a bad card. I think if you play it right, you can make it work. I don't know that I would want to rely on it. I think good old-fashioned credits is, you know, maybe a little bit more predictable, and then you can build it with Ash and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not down on the card at all, and I think in the right deck it could be quite useful.
Corpse, what do you got with that Eliza's toy box?
I think that it's again, it's a decent card because I mean, think of the amount of time that we were using and the people who still do use Melange Mining Corp. 3 clicks for $7. Well, this could potentially be 3 clicks for much more than $7, depending on what you're resin, right? So it's gonna really depend upon your build, and again, timing, as Greg said, because you have to have it somewhere where they can't get at it, or it's just gonna be run bait and it's gonna be over and it's not gonna be worth its metal. But chances are, if you're including that, you're also including some pretty heavy ice, expecting not to pay for it. So losing it before the use would be a pretty big blow against you.
Very good comparison on the mining corp thing there. It shows that it can be done, and the return on investment there can definitely help you out. I do like the fact that it is a 4 trash at least. I think in the past we've been used to seeing some of these funkier cards that have high res, low trash, and that's put a lot of people off on them before. So.
One to get rid of it. It's like, nope.
Yeah, the mining, yeah. Let's just hear another question about our thoughts on, I think it was Sealed Vault.
Oh, yeah.
Can you guys touch on Sealed Vault? Curious to hear your thoughts on if it's a hard account siphon counter.
I saw that card, and that's the first place my brain went, which is probably the first place most people's brains went. And then I was like, man, do I want to put that in there just to stop account siphon? Like, when the whole progress of the game, we've kind of been building our decks just to kind of soft prevent account siphons, Do I really want to put the hard one in there and take up the card slot? And then I was like, no. What about you, Greg?
Yeah, totally the same way. I think a bunch of soft counters is much better than 3 hard counters in any deck. I think hard counters in general are bad. It's bad use of your deck in general. I think you always want to try and build soft counters or a hard counter that has versatility.
Man,
because I mean, the other thing too is Imp is so prevalent in not just Anarch, but in almost all Shaper decks. So you're going to move all your money over, and then they're going to install an Imp and kill it anyway.
Yeah, that's a deadly combo waiting to happen.
That's game.
I personally, I'm really shying away from Sealed Vault. I had my own ways before of dealing with account siphon. I was running marked accounts before Near Earth Hub or shipments to Sansan, so I could always have something back. Or sometimes you just have a piece of ice over HQ that you just don't res, right, until someone's like, an account siphon run, and you're like, okay, stop them there. But Sealed Vault is, as much as it's an 8 to trash, there are other ways to remove cards from the game, and I mean, I will definitely pay 8 if you're losing a lot more than 8.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like you're putting your money in play, right? And it's very risky. Okay, so here's one that ties in with that. Do you guys like how they're printing meta counter cards like Sealed Vault and Cerebral Static Chronos Project. What are your thoughts on printing cards that kind of kill the current state of the game and change it into something else?
I mean, yeah, I think it's cool because it's like it just adds different layers to the game. It adds different dimensions. That it allows the game to go in different directions. And it's going to get to a point where you're not going to see a lot of these cards in decks, but you'll see them sometimes. And the more cards that come out, the more sort of cool different ways you'll be able to see these cards used, and more like you'll be able to see them, empowered by new cards coming out or whatever. So I think it's cool. Maybe the other thing too is like there's such a cry out against cards like Account Siphon from the community that if they, and I think that's why we see a lot of questions about cards like, I already forgot the name of it because I don't even use it, the Vault. I think that's why that's a popular question, is because like Account Siphon is such an elephant in the room in the Netrunner community that FFG was like, well, we have to do something. So, oh, here's the something they did. So let's make sure we talk about that something. But like the overall big picture of the game, like I said, like, yeah, it's cool to have hard counters, and you need them so that a certain aspect of the game doesn't totally get overrun with dominance. But I think there's enough balance in the game where you're not really going to see these needed, except for maybe like Carapace still.
So there was a time that we saw cerebral imaging flare up like a firecracker in the night. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to play a version of Cerebral. With the new cards that are out right now, right, like Eliza's Toy Box or IQ and some of the spoiled upcoming cards, how viable do you think Cerebral Imaging is right now? Do you think we're going to run a lot of people in Worlds going to bring a Cerebral deck? Should we be worried?
I'd be ready for it. I think it top aided U.S. Nationals, a Cerebral Imaging deck. So it's still viable, and with the right pilot, it's still going to be really strong. But I think that people learn how to play against it a little bit. You stockpile money, you get a ton of early accesses, you try to do what you can. But yeah, I mean, I think it's still good, and I'd be ready for it.
Corpse, are you think you're going to see this a lot?
Potentially. Just so I'm on the same page. That's the big hand one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess with the inclusion of legwork, and the popularity of that, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be like something it's not going to be like Neurith Hub, basically. It's not going to be like NBN has been, that sort of thing. So I'm sure that we're going to see the thing, and I'm sure that it's definitely going to win because there's going to be a lot of people who are just straight up not prepared to deal with it. But the cards that they've been adding to the game, again, like that access to hand, could put a bit of a damper on that. We'll see. Because, I mean, no matter how big your hand is, there's still the card to agenda ratio, and seeing more than one card in the hand, it's going to bear the same amount of fruits, right? So
and plus the other thing too is that when they're in your hand, they're not random anymore because you're actually taking cards out of your hand, like ice and assets and operations. So you have a little bit better percentage of accessing agendas in a big hand than you do in a big R&D.
Yeah. So
yeah, decks like that worry me a little bit, and it's not because they're overly powerful. They worry me because you always in a field that size, like Worlds, you have that 30% of the people that are like, I love this deck. I'm gonna bring my deck that is so far outside of the meta that it gives everyone such a hard time. If you just come up against something that you're totally not expecting, done. There's always one in every tournament, someone's bringing this. Like, it doesn't do very well. It's not super competitive, but if you get paired up with them first round and you're not expecting it, I think you're starting your day 0-1.
That's not entirely true though, because I still remember one handsome hatted fellow who went with the big breaker out of nowhere and took regionals. So yeah, it's they can win. They can win. I mean, going to Worlds is going to be a different story because there's going to be just the caliber of player is going to be through the roof. You know what I mean? For people who are finishing probably in the top half of the finishers there. But yeah, I think there's definitely merit for those kinds of decks.
Yeah, but speaking of that deck, that took a lot more tweaking than just showing up with something that that I thought was good. I believed wholeheartedly that I could make it work.
That's not true. You built it that morning, didn't you? It's rolled into it.
I changed a lot from day to day. I played back-to-back regionals, and the day before it failed horribly. So I did a lot of tweaking that night for the next one, but I don't know. Some more in comments here. John says that he's still running with 2-year-old Gabe, and he's happy as he could be running them.
I bet.
Yeah, man.
Gabe's still alive.
Yeah, but he didn't really come through in the predictions.
Well, I mean, I think Gabe could easily take it as much as anyone, quite honestly. Gabe might be the best call. I'm going to mess around with Gabe against some decks out there, but I mean, Gabe can always just seal a game before it starts.
Yeah, once he gets his little econ engine rolling. So we're gonna be wrapping things up soon. So if anyone else in the comment box has any comments, questions, or you might have to save them till next week. We're gonna try and do these weekly, hopefully from about 10:30 to roughly 11:30 Eastern time. Or let us know. We're trying to accommodate everybody as much as we can here, but obviously Netrunner is a global game, so we're always going to step on a few toes. But you guys want any cards that you didn't feel that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about yet?
I got one.
Yeah, man.
That I think needs to be discussed that sort of changed one identity in particular. That's Cash.
Very true.
I think Cash is a total game changer for Noise, and even D4V, 1D, or David, whatever you want to call it, but especially Cash. I mean, Noise has viable econ now that can be sustained for an entire game, and that's what makes him so deadly. And the fact that like he can just sit there and you pay cheap viruses all game, mill you with cheap viruses, make money, make big snipe runs when he needs to. But I think Cash was really like that was one of those cards that was actually hyped a lot before it came out, and then sort of held true to what we all expected it would do. I mean, because think about it, you have a Grimoire in play, you play 0 with a Cyber Feeder or Saharasa, and then you take 4 credits off of it, and then you Aesops it next turn. That's a 7 credit swing plus a mill.
Are you going on record that that's the way to pronounce that card?
Cash?
No. The Saharazard.
Oh yeah.
We get ridiculed pretty hard on pronunciation, Greg. So I don't.
All right. Well, Saharasa. That's how I say it when I see it. Ridicule me. That's fine.
So you can't hide behind the Canadian accent excuse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a Wisconsin accent is like a Canadian accent, but it's like yours is just a little bit more, you know.
any cards right now that you guys are finding annoying to play against?
Astroscript?
Check.
Does that count?
Oh, it always counts. But I mean, you know what I mean? Stealing them nice and early can really, really put a damper on an NBN player, even if they're, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's an awesome card and it works really well. But I mean, if you lose it, it's a big setback for most decks and their build. So I don't know, I think it's balanced pretty good. It's balanced pretty good.
For me, it's just when somebody doesn't stick with the meta, and I get an unexpected ice that I'm running through. I'm like, oh, okay, make an early run, and it's something ridiculous that I just didn't expect.
Like Neural Katana?
Yeah.
back from the grave.
Or,
yes.
Or what's it? Corpse, how much do you love the Komanu?
Komanu. Yeah, not so much. That was
Andy Andromeda, first turn, runs my server.
9 cards gone.
How about Psychic Field? I got an 8-card Psychic Field with Andy once. I lost 8 cards. That was fun.
I know. It's so horrendous, and it's like ability gone. You know what I mean? Not just that, but like you are just scrambling for the rest of the game. Pretty sure I lost that one.
You felt like you just got the Jinteki current played on you, eh?
Oh man, yeah, same thing.
Nullified your ability.
That would only work if that worked before the game started.
Yeah.
This was something else.
It was something else.
Yeah. Are you smiling about it?
It's just one of those in-game moments that are fun to laugh about.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So seeing fast track when someone comment to cards that they hate is fast track. When someone fast tracks an Astro with a Sansan in play.
What was their name? Did they have a name beside that there?
John Wesley.
John Wesley. I switched to NBN because I hated that card so much. I was like, how can you include this in the game and then expect people not to use NBN? And then it was like, oh, I put it in. It was so terrible. And then I hated myself. I felt gross. You know.
You went in the corner and felt shame?
I felt so ashamed of myself for doing that. I mean, I'm an Andy player, so I get that kind of ridicule a lot. But I mean, I felt so ashamed when I did that. Like, oh, bad. But yeah, I'm in the boat with him.
Fast track's just too powerful not to put in your NBN.
So dirty.
Well, it's funny though. Like I was thinking about that, and I'm sort of on that same wavelength. I mean, fast track's a beast, but before fast track, everyone was complaining about once you're R&D locked, you can't win. So it's like, okay, fine. We'll print a counter to it. Well, fast track's too powerful. So.
Well, they could have made it either like cost something at least, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Put an influence tip on it.
Nothing is a little ludicrous.
Yeah, $0 to win.
Maybe like even influence would have been reasonable.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that when they did that with Jackson Howard, Corpse, you don't like that at all. You don't like the fact that he's got influence on him.
Yeah, because Jackson fixed the fundamental problem with the game. Like I compare it to Magic the Gathering. Like there's Mana Screw and Mana Flood. Well, there's Agenda Screw and Agenda Flood in Netrunner, and Jackson fixes that. He does some things also on the side, like protects against the indexings, and yet that draws you some cards, whatever. But that ability of being able to throw things and then shuffle them back into R&D fixed a luck problem with the game of Netrunner. And so that you shouldn't make people pay for that, I don't think. But that's just me. Hose me.
This is just you, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point. I think it's sort of iffy. It goes both ways because Jackson fits so much with the MBN like theme and what they try to do. And like HB also has like their own archive answers. But certainly Wayland and Jinteki are kind of hung out to dry in there. Well, I guess Jinteki has like Shocks and Chaku they protect their archives with. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I totally agree with you. But maybe as the card pool grows, we'll see more like answers within faction for people to protect their archives.
I just want to say I'll put a lot of thought into it after we had done a video recently talking about Jackson Howard, and I think it came up with the fix. And what I would have been completely happy with is he's like a floating executive. He's no influence. He's neutral. And once per turn, you can use him to draw 2 cards, but then he still has the sack ability where you can put things back in your R&D. So you can't just like abuse draw him and then ditch a whole bunch. You know what I mean? Like if it was just once per turn, you could draw 2 cards off him, so he's not terribly amazing. You know what I mean? I would have been pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
I'm happy with him now. I'm happy with him now, but I mean, I would have been a little bit more. I would have been marginally more happy if you.
That seems totally reasonable, actually. I like that style.
I just like it the way it is because it makes you so annoyed.
Yeah. It's like the one thing that can get under my skin.
Start talking about Jackson Howard is perfectly. Yeah. Well, G Dragon, he agrees with you. It should be neutral and cost influence. So
that's my point.
You got some supporters there. Corpse, did you have any cards you wanted to touch on that you feel like we should be mentioning?
No, I think it's kind of too early to really tell. I mean, we've seen some things that we like people could easily predict that, okay, this card is going to be good and we're going to see it in some pretty good winning decks. But of these last 3 packs, I need to see more variety of decks, and we just need to see those random people like Greg, figuring out the red coats. Like, we just need to see people figure out new decks they're going to utilize some of these cards. But I do completely agree that unscheduled maintenance is probably by far the worst card I think I've seen in a long time. And I just don't understand on what plane of existence one would use this card. But that's just me. Well, probably not just me.
Maybe if there was an identity that said search your deck and play 1 current to start the game, then maybe, because then you could like load your deck with like HQ interfaces and R&D interfaces and get a multi-axis first turn. But
yeah,
it's garbage. I agree. It's right next to where we keep the spare toilet paper.
I think that would be an interesting idea. Start your.
It'd be a cool runner current, right? Because then you could like start the pace of the game.
Start your game with a current in play from your deck.
Yeah.
Corpse more should be a Netrunner designer. I don't know if that's the comment of the night right there. Let's obviously these packs, there's some self-explanatory cards. I think the currents are all kind of like nobody really knows where they are right now. David came out. Everyone knows that's going to be a solid card. They're building towards the Grail Ice. That probably won't be something until they flushed more of them out. Let's end. Unless we have a really crazy question that comes through, let's talk about Will o' the Wisp. I think this is a good card to end on. This card, when it was spoiled, drove people insane, as most of these cards do. I think Fantasy Flight picks good cards to spoil and stir people up. But Will o' the Wisp, I have never seen it played.
I was looking at that again earlier today, and I'm still actually staring at it for a while now. It's been on my second screen here, and yeah, it's like are you willing to pay that $4 to set them back? And depending on who you're playing against, how badly is it really going to set them back? I mean, if you're playing against green, it's probably not going to set them back terribly because they can just go, oh, back in, right? And the same with Anarch. So I mean, this would hurt a lot of criminal players. But with the 1 out of 3 faction, with it really hurting them, is it worth including? To me, it's a no. But I think that might be what a lot of people are thinking about. What do you think?
Well, I don't know why you'd say it hurt criminal, because isn't every criminal running window?
They run special order.
Yeah.
Don't you want to
Doesn't pull out of the grave though.
draw one card from the bottom of your stack? Come on.
Oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't put it back in your.
That's the will of the wisp counter.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, man. I can't.
I'm really surprised that it's underplayed. But then I think that goes back to, again, we're not seeing heavy aggressive punishment decks, right? Like they're just not as dominant out on the scene. We have all these great cards that just destroy the runner, but they're kept at home. Greg, what are you seeing for Will o' the Wisp?
I see it intermittently here and there. I think it's by far the biggest drawback of it is the fact that it takes 4 to use. And it can be, as mentioned, a very, very temporary answer to getting rid of something, because criminals also have special order. So I remember one game I just kept, when I knew it was a Will o' the Wisp, I'd just wait to run it with a special order, and then I'd be fine. I could get back in the server next turn. So, I mean, there's ways to play around it a little bit. Obviously, timing-wise, if you have the money and you get them at the right time, it's great to put in a server as a bluff. You just drop the Will o' the Wisp in by itself, or if you know they're playing some sort of protective asset like Ash, and they drop a Will o' the Wisp on top of Ash, you think it's an agenda, so you go after it. Those are the kinds of plays where I think it can be maximized. Because A, they're spending all that money to get through the server, and then B, they lose a breaker. That's pretty devastating. But in general, I think it's a little bit hard to use. And then when they find it in your hand or in the R&D, it's just a buck to get rid of. So
it's that maligning corp.
Yeah. I think it has decent balance in that way, because the effect is pretty good. But $4 in a tight game oftentimes is just not doable.
Some comments about Will o' the Wisp here is some Andre's tried it. It opens up scoring windows for him, but he's also saying that Ash and Troubleshooter are way better.
Is that Andre Mott?
Yeah.
What's up, Andre? It's my book.
Tony says that Willow is great everywhere other than Jinteki decks. It's insane in Wayland builds. And other people are, Martin's seconding that, loves it in Wayland. With Troubleshooter, Archer, and Grim. So it looks like a couple people are playing with it, so that's nice, but I'm just not seeing it at a high competitive level.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could work, but I agree. I mean, it's probably best in Wayland, and it'll have some value in a Wayland trashing deck. And I think if you build around it, it's probably a nice. It's not like a card where it's like, oh, you shouldn't play Will o' the Wisp. I think if you play it, you have to be well aware of its benefit, pros and cons, and be able to build around that.
Yeah, it's nothing that's going to stop somebody cold, especially because of its trash value. If you cannot get it into play, don't bank on. Don't build your deck based on a Will o' the Wisp hit is going to create these scoring windows and just boost. It's not going to give you the win. There's too much search and recursion out there that's being used. I think to even make this that viable. I mean, I play heavy shaper, and I only use one of each breaker, and I have no problems even if someone trashes my one breaker, right? Clone ships in faction, I'm getting it back. Test run pulls from anywhere. They just have too many tricks up their sleeve, and those Kate decks are just too prevalent right now.
Yep.
So I think that's about it. I don't have anything else on the docket. Corpse.
I'm good. Other than I misspoke, I forgot that Will-O-Wisp is bottom of the stack, not archive. So don't hose me on the comments, guys, because I haven't seen it.
Cool. Yeah, haven't played against it. Greg, any closing thoughts?
No, I think we hit all the most important cards. I mean, I think there's a few other cards that maybe just deserve honorable mention. Not many discussion, but Next Silver. I think Force is interesting. Mother Goddess, the Grail Mechanic is coming on. Domestic Sleepers. IQ is an interesting card. Supplier, I think, might be one of my favorite cards to come out, but Heinlein Grid is kind of interesting. So I think there's a lot of interesting cards that have come out, and I believe that the game is further diversifying, and I think that's great.
True. So guys, thanks for joining us here in the kickoff of Season 3, Bad Publicity. Let us know in the comments. Always feel free to hit us up in what topics you'd like to see. Thanks to those people who stayed up or joined us from all around. Really appreciate it. And then you'll should be able to catch this on demand on the YouTube channel.
Oh, good morning to everybody in Australia.
Isn't it noon there?
Is it?
Are they 12 hours ahead?
They're more than that. They're like 14 hours at least. So it's probably like 2 or 3 o'clock there. 1, 2, or 3, something like that. Good night, mates.
Good afternoon.
So good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
No, good day. Good day.
All right, guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and catch you next time, Netrunner players. Man, I always have such a hard time with intros and endings.
You do great.
All right, guys. Thanks a bunch.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.